a lot of people asking about the GH5, and we're planning a full review of it, but we've been recording with it for the last few days. We're doing a DJI Inspire 2 review. So Justin, our cameraman, has been working with it just constantly, not running it through artificial tests, but really getting real world examples and just experience with it. So we just wanted to share that really quickly. So Justin's the star of this video. I'm just working the controls here. Introducing our cameraman, Justin.
Hi there. We received this camera on Tuesday and put it to good use while filming the Inspire 2 review. The autofocus, I know it's not perfect. It's a mirrorless camera. It's never going to be as good as a DSLR.
The 70D or 80D just tracks focus better even when recording video. And I don't know if it's a DSLR thing. It might just be a Canon thing, because I think Canon's just worked that out better.
I was never a huge fan of the GH4 autofocusing. I would typically have it in manual focus and rely on focus peaking. Occasionally we would have it hooked up to something like the Atmos Shogun, which was always helpful. You could do a 2-to-1 focus or 1-to-1 focus. But so far, I'm really impressed with the GH5 focus. It has a lot of kind of focus settings. It does the face/eye detect focusing. That seems to work great. For example, Chelsea was walking up and down the stairs when we were filming the Inspire inside, and it did a remarkably good job.
Yeah, and I think part of it is how you use it, because we know it doesn't do a great job of continuous focusing while recording, so we tend not to rely on that. Like we'll use single autofocus to get it in focus, or we'll focus it and then switch to manual focus and then actually start recording. So it's one of those things where no, it's not perfect, but we work around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was actually an instance of this we just found. I was going through clips we had recorded over the past 2 or 3 days, and there were 1 or 2 instances where I was just shooting Tony upstairs in the kitchen, and he was standing there. He wasn't, there was no motion, no movement or anything. And surprisingly, it was drifting in and out of focus. Despite, I know for a fact I had the focus target box kind of zeroed in on Tony's face. So unexplainably, it would focus on the background and drift back in. But aside from that, that's one of the only instances I've seen so far. And we've probably used this for several hours at the very least, maybe more, maybe like a full day's worth of recording spread over the past 3 days or something like that.
Yeah, and I'll just add that I've had that same experience with like the Sony cameras. They will just sometimes hunt if you leave on a continuous autofocus, and kind of again why we would just not ever leave that turned on unless we really needed to be tracking.
Yeah, and I'm also a fan of the A7R2's focusing system, specifically with like a portrait lens. Those have always been quite good. I've kind of liked using those in run and gun situations. We were out in California filming stuff with it, and it did a really great job. But I still think this GH5 is much better, and we've tried several different lenses where they seem to work really well with. We'll have to do some more scientific tests. But
it's still early. We're going to be testing this in like the real world for a few weeks, but we just wanted to get out some quick first impressions. It's definitely not a deal breaker, because we published that image quality review and everybody had seen Mac's videos and they were like, oh, I think I'm not going to get the camera because of the autofocus, but I don't think it's a deal breaker.
No, I don't think it's a deal breaker at all. I think this is a great camera.
So I know on the A7R2 we have this big battery grip that at least lets you put in 2 batteries, but even those 2 batteries will run out pretty quick. How's the battery life been on the GH5?
It uses the same batteries as the GH4, as I'm sure you guys know, but that's convenient that we're not switching battery systems and starting over. I've noticed the battery life is good, but it's not nearly as good as the GH4 battery life. And I think that's reasonable because we've been filming 4K at 60 frames a second, and there's also 2 memory card slots here. So, well, I think we went through 2 batteries today. We were probably filming for about 2 to 3 hours at a time, each one of those, continuously rolling almost the whole time. So,
yeah, on a Sony that would require, I think, like infinite batteries.
Yeah. Yeah,
you'd have to be running back and throwing other batteries on the charger and using like USB chargers and stuff. Like it just gets unmanageable.
Yeah, it really does. And just, for example, those camera overviews, we typically will use the Sony A7R II and a portrait lens. And this last time, it was like the third time or something, I went to the closet to get a Sony battery, and then Tony just realized we have to get an adapter. I don't know why we didn't do that earlier, but just Sony needs to get bigger batteries. That's all.
And how many times has it overheated so far?
No overheating. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I will say with the Sonys, especially the A7R II, we tend to record for literally like an hour and a half straight, and it's kind of inevitable that it will record, that it will overheat. So I don't know that we've been like continuously recording, but you have recorded pretty long times.
Right. Yeah, I would say we haven't been continuously recording, but we have recorded for really long stretches of time, and I am kind of curious to use this GH5 for our next camera overview, just to kind of confirm that. But
so it's not a major problem, but we'll do some more testing.
Right. Right.
After watching our image quality review, a lot of people expressed concern about the color, and I'm not sure because we recorded that under this like weird artificial lighting over the pool table, and there was a lot of weird ambient light bouncing around. But in better lighting, what do you think of the color so far?
We were shooting all kinds of, a whole bunch of sequences in the kitchen yesterday with mostly natural lighting, and it was just auto white balance. I was amazed at the color, and I was remarking to Tony that I couldn't believe how good the color was without any using any LUTs or any color grading or anything like that. It reminded me of the Sony A7R II colors. I've always been a fan of like the Sony colors for photos, video, whatever.
Yeah, I'll second that. When we switched from Canon to the GH4, I thought the colors were worse, like way worse. Yeah. And then when we switched back from the GH4 over to Sony, I thought the Sony colors were better. But yeah, I think the GH5 colors look really good. You've been using it handheld a lot, and one of the advantages is, like the Sony, it has sensor stabilization, as well as like lens stabilization and electrical stabilization. How is the video looking if you handhold it?
So far, so good. We've been using a lot of these OIS lenses, the Lumix brand lenses, and you can still kind of see a little bit of shake here and there, but it's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not like a weird, unnatural movement that you get sometimes.
No, nothing like that. I really do think that part of it might be revolutionary.
How about 30 frames a second versus 60 frames per second? Because one of the big benefits of the GH5 is it records 4K at 60 frames a second. Is that something we should care about?
I think so. I'm a huge fan, much like yourself, Tony, of the 60 frames a second. I think it looks so fluid, and there's not a lot of cameras that aren't like cinema cameras or something that record 4K at 60 frames a second with kind of a micro 4/3 size sensor. I know there's little, GoPro kind of things, and drone cameras and stuff have been able to record that, but it's just beautiful seeing the footage from this at 60 frames a second, and I'm really looking forward to recording a lot more videos with the GH5 at 60 FPS. It looks awesome.
One of the disadvantages of 4K is that not everybody can appreciate it because they have a smaller screen or they're only on a 1080 monitor or something, but everybody can most people can benefit from 60 frames a second. Most monitors can display that, so even people on lower resolutions might appreciate that extra speed. Well, I'll say that I find it really frustrating that the mode dial, for example, has all these different modes: aperture, shutter, priority, manual mode, that only work for stills. If once you put it in movie mode, you then have to go into the menus and set that. Like, it's mostly a video camera. It's exclusively a video camera for us. Why not make the mode dial actually control the video mode? Like, let me just put it into a video only camera mode. Yeah.
I kind of shared that same frustration. But, once again, I was realizing this afternoon down at Ocean State when we were filming that, I think I'm getting the hang of this. The layout is a little different than the GH4, but I certainly think this interface, and especially the GH4 interface, is light years beyond any kind of nonsense like with Sony cameras or the OMD1 Mark II, like I was talking to Tony about. I picked that up the other day, and excuse me, I hadn't used that camera before, and it was taking me a while to get in the movie settings and find this and find that. And I just have always felt the Panasonic has the most intuitive interfaces and menus, and it helps so much that it's a touch screen interface. So I've always been really happy with that aspect.
Yeah, and a thumbstick too, right? That the Sony's lack, and like a decent sized grip and everything.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Because it has the dual card slots, it's a much thicker camera. It does almost feel just like holding a Canon or something like that. And that thumbstick is really nice to be able to move that focus point around. That's something I really appreciate. Just that is a vast improvement over the GH4.
And the screen flips forward. Thank goodness, right? Finally.
Yeah.
Like that's something we use all the time.
Absolutely, yeah. And I do like the articulating touch screen. Just spins out. It's really easy to work with, and nice touch to focus as well. All that stuff is great.
We haven't actually worked with this in the last couple of days, but it has a real HDMI port on the side. I just wanted to mention it because we used to always use the A7S with the Shogun and its micro HDMI port, and it would just come loose and just ruin your whole shot. And a real HDMI port just sticks in place better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Justin, I just wanted to let people go in the comments down below and ask people what they want to see in our full review when we actually record it, because we're going to be like putting a couple of weeks into actually getting real experience with it. We're going to use it to record our other stuff, and so that we can give like real world guidance and not just kind of tests. But maybe, Justin, you could tell everybody to subscribe and like.
Yes, absolutely. Tony will be bringing this lovely camera with him to the Bahamas next week, so it'd be great to see some of that. Please be sure to like, subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, of course. We also have a nifty store. If you go to northrup.photo/shop, we have the best-selling photography book in the world, Stunning Digital Photography, and all kinds of other cool stuff, cool apparel, things like that. So thanks for watching the video. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Justin. Way to plug.
Thanks.